morning, and thank you for joining me today for The Way to a Wonderful Life. I am Reverend Dr. Emilee Bates, coming to you live from Palm Springs, California, teaching from the philosophy of the Mastermind Jesus, the wisdom of the ancients, and the evolutionary science of mind and spirit. This program is not pre-recorded, nor is it edited. It is live. For more information about this ministry, please visit www.revbates.tv or www.revbatesontheradio.org. The Way to a Wonderful Life is broadcast Monday through Friday in KTYM AM 840 radio in Maryland, and you can find that Monday through Friday broadcast schedule that's also simulcast on the internet at www.revbatesontheradio.org, and we're also broadcast on WIMB, World Internet Broadcasters, at WIMB.com on the internet on Saturday afternoons, 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Once again, this is The Way to a Wonderful Life. I am Reverend Dr. Emilee Bates, and this is our last program on KTYM AM 1640 radio, and it's 1460 radio, I'm sorry, and it's kind of a interesting day. We began programming on KTYM on April 26, 2009, so this is our 5th anniversary on KTYM. We began at 4:30 in the morning, and we progressed up to 7:30 in the morning, so I'm going to miss all the good people at KTYM, and I know that each and every one of you who appreciate this station and appreciate this broadcast will find your way to keep contacted with both. Once again, this is The Way to a Wonderful Life, and we're going to open our program as we always do with our prayer affirmation, and let's just find within our heart, our mind, and our soul a greater belief and a greater faith in those words of Jesus that we are to pray believing that it is, pray believing that it's already ours on the unseen side of life, and as Jesus tells us, it's done unto us as we believe. So if you're not driving a vehicle or operating something mechanical this morning, just pause for a moment and listen for that word, that phrase, or that statement that will stir up the spirit within you. Let's begin by saying these words out loud. Say them out loud with me if you can. I believe and I receive. Let's say that one more time. I believe and I receive. And let's know that as we believe with a deep inward calm, that our word of faith is responded to in the affirmative. We can know that our word penetrates any and every unbelief in our thought. It casts out fear, removes doubts, and permits that which we desire to experience to be made manifest in the right and perfect time. As we have complete conviction that our prayers will be carried out in our experience with mathematical certainty, we can keep faith that this is so as we have an absolute reliance upon the law of good, which is the law of God. And as we keep faith with God, everything works for our good. I believe and I receive becomes the truth for you and me today and for everyone. And so it is, amen. And so it is, amen. Once again, this is The Way to a Wonderful Life. You can find The Way to a Wonderful Life on YouTube.com by going to YouTube.com and typing in the search box, Rev Bates, The Way to a Wonderful Life. And you'll find over 200 of my radio broadcasts that you can listen to 24/7 in both English and Spanish. You can also go to MSN, Yahoo, Bing, and Google and type in the search box, Reverend Henry Bates, that's Bates, and you'll find everything you want to find out about this ministry. You can also find me, Reverend Henry Bates, on YouTube, on Google, on Facebook, and on Twitter. So you can find everything you want to find out about this ministry, and you can find Desert Cities Community Church, our little church here in Palm Springs, by going to MSN, Yahoo, Bing, and Google, and typing in the search box Palm Springs Church plus Rev Bates, and you'll find that little church. Anytime you come to Palm Springs, feel free to drop in and pay us a visit. Once again, this is The Way to a Wonderful Life, and our Way to a Wonderful Life message for today is titled, Cause Something to Happen Because You Can. Cause something to happen because you can. Now, in the early days of teaching the law of attraction, or the sowing and reaping, as the Mastermind Jesus called it, many of those in the field of spiritual teaching and healing referred us back to the ancient wisdoms of the Holy Bible and the Torah and the Bhagavad Gita. This was necessary, as too many of those before them in the religious vocations were teaching this ancient wisdom from a surface understanding, almost primitive, rather than the deeper understanding of universal truth and mysticism. Drawing on even the very simple knowledge and awareness that people had of the Holy Bible and the Torah, these teachers and healers found that with the deep impression that this wisdom had made on the collective consciousness, that most people could understand the greater realization of these spiritual principles once they were explained. This is why spiritual healing was so very successful in the 19th and early 20th centuries, especially the period between the 1880s through the 1940s. However, this was also a time of great struggle in the world, and people were motivated to study these things that would give them a way in which they could realize something more than they were experiencing during the time. As the human mind was prepared for a greater understanding of spiritual truth, many great teachers were being recognized and identified with by spiritual seekers. Christian D. Larson and Emilee Cady were two who distinguished themselves by writing books that became instruments of healing and teaching truth with the greatest of clarity. Their writings reveal both a practical and a mystical understanding of spiritual principles. And today we want to go over the writings from those two great teachers, and we want to realize that whatever truth is known anywhere, that truth can be known everywhere. So we know that no matter what period of time that these truths were revealed, and no matter what period of time these healings took place, what one can do, all can do. And that was the basic teaching of the Mastermind Jesus. He said, these things I do, and greater things than you've done before will you do when you keep faith with God, when you understand that God is always with you, always seeking to look for you, work for your good, and always present right where you are. You know, we inhale the air that we breathe from the area of wherever we may be, and we assume that the oxygen is available for us to inhale, and when we have enough oxygen in our lungs, we exhale. That air that we breathe is as invisible as this great unseen intelligence, power, and spirit of God that's also present and available to us, that must always come to us through our recognition and identification of it and with it. So we must learn to align our mind with the nature of God, learn to align our mind with the power, the intelligence, and the spirit of God. And as we do those things, then we can cause some wonderful things to happen in our lives, no matter what circumstances, conditions, or situations we may find ourselves in. There's always a solution, there's always a way, as the great teachers say. Now, Emilee Cady wrote her classic book, Lessons in Truth, in 1896. She was a student of the teacher of teachers, the mystical Emma Curtis Hopkins, and was greatly influenced by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Even though the words may appear a little old-fashioned, there is great wisdom in her words. We can read, we now know that money, houses, lands, and all material things can be made to come to us by holding them in our thoughts as ours. But that is not the highest God has in store for us. Eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, nor hath it entered into the heart of man to conceive of the things he hath prepared for them that love. What? Love self? No, but that love him, that love God, love the good more than self, Jesus said. They that have forsaken houses, lands, etc., for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold now in this time of houses and lands, etc. They that have forsaken self, they that dare let their hand be forever open to their brother, doing good and lending, hoping for nothing again, to them is the promise of 100-fold even in this life. God has called us to be stewards of his supply. He has chosen us as vessels to carry good to others, and it's only while caring to others that we ourselves can be filled. The law is, give, and it shall be given to you. Good measure, pressed down and running over, give without thought of return. But, says one, am I to give my time, my money, my best thoughts to others and not require them something in return? It is not just. Give as God gives. He knows no mine and thine. He says, all I have is thine. All I have is thine. Look only to God for supply. If anything is returned to you through the one to whom you give, render thanks for it. If nothing visible is returned, give thanks just the same, knowing that no man can stand between you and the inexhaustible supply, and that it is he that withholds, who is impoverished thereby. Because if we withhold, something will be withheld from us. It may not be money. We may have all kinds of money, but health may be withheld from us. Peace of mind may be withheld from us. Something in our life will validate that withholding so that we can realize that withholding is something that we must change in ourselves. Let's go back to Emilee, Cady. She writes, when we have learned that God is our supply and that He it is from whence cometh all our help, we will no longer care whether pay is rendered for our services or not. We will simply know that all things are ours now, and out of the fullness of love we will give freely. God's hand is sure. Your hand is God's hand now today. It is full now. Give out of it mentally to all who call upon you, whatever they may need. Trust also in Him, and He shall bring it to pass. That's from Emilee, Cady. And although her words may appear to stretch our concepts about life, Cady speaks to a higher truth than what we have accepted from the world. She is telling us, in effect, to elevate our thought, to imitate the nature of God in all that we do. Elevate our thought and imitate the nature of God. What is the nature of God? The nature of God is livingness. God is life. Givingness, God has provided for all of us. God continues to provide for all of us. And spirit, keep that state of mind that's filled with faith and filled with hope and filled with expectation that your good cannot be denied, that no one can withhold from you because you withhold from no one. We are to know that we are to do that which comes to us to do without thought of it for who it is or what it is to be gained from the doing or the giving of it. In this, we loose the idea of limitation and struggle from our mind, and a mind that is free of limitation and struggle can receive the guidance and ideas that will give us all that we need to experience a full life, a fuller life, a more joyous life, a happier life. Now, the great Christian D. Larson became one of the greatest influences on spiritual teachers in the 20th century. His understanding of the power of the mind, magnetizing through our faith, would give us the ability to cause changes in the conditions and circumstances we may be experiencing. His view that as we were to look to God for all things, just as Jesus told us, and to look for the Spirit of truth in all things, the Spirit of truth in all things. That's why we don't take the Bible literally. We know that we look for the Spirit of truth, no matter whether we're looking in the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Gospels, or the Torah. We look for the Spirit of truth in all things. Even as we go back to the ancient wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, we seek that Spirit of truth. And we know that as we look to the Spirit of truth in all things, that we shall find a greater conscious union with our Maker, with God, with the Spirit that brought us into this formation or form of a human experience, so that we can realize and we can know that livingness, that givingness, and that forgivingness that we're to align ourselves with that nature of God, that love, that peace, the joy, the harmony. That's why God clothed our spirit in human form. That's why this intelligence that formed us seeks to express through us in a greater way every day. That's why we're always desiring something better. We're always seeking that good and that more good, that greater good. We're always seeking to make our best better, each and every one of us. We are always seeking to make our best better. There's it's a rare thing for someone not to be seeking to make their best better, even if they're not even aware of it themselves. Let's look at these words from Christian D. Larson. He writes, a certain phase of modern optimism has fallen into the habit of saying that everything is for the best. Everything is for the best. Whatever comes or not, according to this idea, be it good or otherwise, the mind consoled with the belief that it is all for the best, and although there is a pleasing side to this belief, still the final result of it is not desirable. To live in the belief that anything is for the best is to get into the habit of becoming content with anything, and to become content with anything is to cease practically all efforts toward the attainment of the higher and the greater. Such an attitude will also cause the mind to admit everything that may enter its world, no matter how inferior it may be. In other words, we must use wisdom and discernment and find that way that we can realize the greater, that we can realize that something better, and not just accept everything that comes to us as the best. We must learn to make our best better, and we must learn to consciously realize within ourselves that we have the ability, we have the power, we have the intelligence, we have the spirit, the strength to do it as we look to God for our all in all. Let's continue with Christian D. Larson. He writes, if there is something that you want to do now, do not think that it is for the best that circumstances are against you now. Instead, live in the faith that those circumstances must change, that is, for the best that they should change, and that you have the power to begin that change now. Let's look at this again. If there is something that you want to do now, do not think that it is for the best that circumstances are against you now. Instead, live in the faith that those things against you must change, that it is for the best that they should change, and that you have the power to begin that change now, right now. Circumstances did not make themselves. You either have made them yourself or you have accepted them ready-made from someone else. In other words, we have believed the world. We have allowed ourselves to believe what the world believes for us, rather than take that ideas about us, that image likeness that God has created us in, and realize what it is that we should believe for ourselves, knowing that we are of the nature of God. We are of the nature of intelligence and power and spirit. So what you have made, you can remake, he tells us, and what you have accepted, you can reject. So let's go back and look at this again. Circumstances did not make themselves. You have either made them yourself or you have accepted them ready-made from someone else. But what you have made, you can remake, and what you have accepted, you can reject. Therefore, whatever may be the cause of your present circumstances, you have the power to change those circumstances according to your own desire and need. According to your own desire and need. Right there, I start thinking about two people. Most people are aware of who Joel Osteen is. Joel Osteen kind of fell into the ministry. He wasn't trained as a minister, but his father passed, and there was a need for someone to take over the ministry, to take the lead that his father had, to take that place that his father had done so successfully. And Joel Osteen became that person. He didn't have the training for it. He didn't have any idea of how it would come to pass. But he had faith that there was something calling him from within, that it would happen. And now he is, although probably one of the least educated in a cemetery or seminarian sort of way, or a theological sort of way, minister in the country. He has the largest church in the country. And most people, especially in the Los Angeles area, are familiar with Dr. Robert Schuller. He started his ministry at a outdoor theater, a drive-in theater. And a lot of people laughed at him and ridiculed him and said, who is this silly man that is having church services at a drive-in theater? But he built that into the Crystal Cathedral, and even though that time for him has passed, he had a great achievement, a great accomplishment that no one in the world could take away from him. And even though it has transitioned into something else now, or been made into something else now, that certainly wasn't part of Dr. Schuller's vision, his vision held as long as it was right for him to be there with that vision. So we know that this sense of accomplishment, this sense of faith within us, this sense that some greater is calling us, works through us, works through our mind, our heart, and our soul. So let's look at these words once again from Christian D. Larson, who wrote these words way before either Joel Osteen or Dr. Robert Schuller came into existence. He wrote, "Circumstances did not make themselves. You have either made them yourself or you have accepted them ready-made from someone else. But what you have made, you can remake, and what you have accepted, you can reject. Therefore, whatever may be the cause of your present circumstances, you have the power to change those circumstances according to your own desire and need." And why is that? Because desire is coming, that desire that comes to our awareness is coming from God, the infinite intelligence, infinite power, infinite spirit, moving through our mind as ideas for us. The desire is that God is desiring to do that, live that, work that through us, as us, and for us, if we get ourselves out of the way. And we must use the power of our mind in dynamic ways, or else our mind can become passive and will passively accept whatever is presented to it. It is no secret that Christian D. Larson influenced the great Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, and Dr. Peale titled two of his books based on the influence of Larson, The Power of Positive Thinking and the book You Can If You Think You Can. In both books, we will find the influence of Larson's philosophy that expanded the scope of spiritual principles so that everyone can understand that God has gifted us with the power to control the conditions in our lives, but we must first be willing to take control. And Larson is telling us to cause something to happen because we can. Cause something to happen because we can. Take charge of our mind and we take charge of our life. Let's realize that just like Emilee Cady is telling us, when our mind is so focused on what we're going to get out of whatever it is that we do, whatever it is that our creative expression may be, if our mind is focused on how much we're going to get paid, then we're not going to put that fullness of our creative expression, the fullness of our givingness into that thing, and so we're going to come up short. But when we work as if we don't need the money, when we do things only because we enjoy and love the doing of it, then all things, just as Jesus tells us, will be added unto us. The money will come, the compensation will come, everything will happen. If we're working in a job and the employer that we have is not compensating us fairly, then this law of good, which is the law of God that works through us all the time, 24/7, it will find us a way, a door of opportunity that will take us away from that employer, take us away from that situation, take us away from that relationship, whatever it may be, into that something greater, into that something more wonderful. There is a way to a wonderful life for all of us, but we must find in our mind, we must seek, if we are to find that way, our way, to live that wonderful life, to realize all the goodness that God has for us, all the joys that God has for us, and all the feelings of achievement and accomplishment and success that our heart desires. We have the ability to tap into that consciousness, that greater intelligence, that greater power, that greater spirit, by recognizing that it's available, by identifying with it, by realizing that that image and likeness of God that we have been created in is not something that the world all has understood, and it's not something that the world will recognize, but we must recognize that greater image, that greater likeness of the livingness, the givingness, and the forgivingness of God within our own heart, our mind, and our soul. And as we do, then we shall cause something greater to happen. Give without thought of return. Give, and it shall be given to you, good measure, pressed down and running over. And as we realize this and we start thinking about it in a greater way, and we start realizing that we're not here to serve people. We're here to express God, and people just get the gift. That's something that's because they're there. They just get the gift of our spirit because they happen to be in the right place at the right time. So once again, I want to thank you for being with me today. I'm going to close this program today with a prayer affirmation that I presented on the radio in Maryland, WKDI AM 840.com, on the internet, WKDI 840 in Maryland. You can read this if you go on the internet, and you can also go to the Facebook page for Desert Cities Community Church or Facebook page for Reverend Henry Bates, and you can find the text version and the audio of this. And this is something that a lot of people requested from me on Friday, and I was kind of surprised because this is something that I'm always talking about, something that I'm always encouraging people to sit down and write out their thoughts about God, write out their thoughts about what they believe, because what it is that's going through our thoughts, that's where our faith is. And our thoughts directed towards the good, just as Jesus tells us, directed towards God, will draw to us, magnetize to us, all the things necessary for the abundant life, the joyful life. So let's listen to these words and just set ourselves up in our mind. Let's let our mind relax. Let our mind relax and know that today is the day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And we can rejoice and find gladness as we affirm these words. Let's affirm them together. Just silently accept this for yourself. The power of my faith creates for me an awareness that the intelligence of God has found an opening in my mind to realize for me, in me, a desire for a more healthy life, a more prosperous life, a more successful life, a more joy-filled life. As I choose to mentally believe this is true for me, I can state with confidence that the good desires of my heart are God's good desires for me. I am aware of my good in a greater way. I am more confident that I can claim the good that I desire. I am filled with the awareness that my faith is magnified and draws to me like a magnet all things necessary for me to experience that which resides in my mind and heart as the truth for me. I claim my good through my thoughts and the images that fill my mind and in the words that define what this good is to me. I am interested in my good. I am filled with the joy of living and the experience of my good desires. I am fascinated with the way in which the intelligent spirit and power of God prepares the way for all this good and more to be made manifest in my life, beginning right now, right where I am. And so it is. Amen. Once again, I want to thank you for being with me today. It's been my great pleasure to have you, and I hope you join me on my next broadcast. Actually, I guess you won't be joining me on this broadcast. Today is the 5th anniversary of The Way to a Wonderful Life being broadcast on KTYM AM 1460 in Los Angeles. We've spent 5 years. We began our broadcast at 4:30 a.m. and slowly but surely got to the 7:30 a.m. time slot. We began on April 25th, 2009. I'm going to leave you with the fact that this program is also broadcast 6 days a week live from Palm Springs, simulcast on the internet 6 days a week, and also broadcast on the internet 16 times a week, even as we leave this wonderful station, KTYM AM 1460 radio. I'm going to miss all the people here, especially my engineer, Johnny Morris, who has been a great inspiration and support for me and this ministry. I want to thank each and every one of you who have supported this broadcast, and I want to especially let you know that I am very grateful for all that support. And I want to invite you to go to youtube.com, type in the search box, The Way to a Wonderful Life channel, Rev Bates, The Way to a Wonderful Life channel, and you'll find over 200 of my radio broadcasts that you can listen to 24/7, and new broadcasts are being added to that YouTube channel all the time. And you can go to WKDIAM840.com Monday through Friday, 7:30 Pacific time, and you can listen to The Way to a Wonderful Life coming to you live from Palm Springs, California, Saturday afternoon at 5 p.m. Pacific time. You can go to WIMB.com, that's World International Broadcasters.com, WIMB.com, and you can listen also to the Way to a Wonderful Life, coming to you live from Palm Springs, California. So once again, God bless you. God bless us all. Let's live in the knowing and the belief and the faith that with God, all good things are possible. Jesus tells us in the Gospel of Luke that which seems impossible for mankind is possible with God. So as we imitate the nature of God through our givingness, our livingness, and our forgivingness, we shall find all good things will be added unto us as we keep faith. Keep the faith. God bless you, and God bless us all.